right, good evening, everyone. And just give me just a moment. We'll start the recording and then we shall proceed with the Liberty Talk.
The Constitution isn't just a document. It's a blueprint for freedom. We're breaking down politics at every level, exposing government overreach, and going where the mainstream media surely won't. Join us in defending individual rights against the bureaucratic tide. You're listening to the Missouri Liberty Report.
All right, folks, and we are back with another edition of the Missouri Liberty Report. Great to see everybody this evening. Appreciate all of you. Continued support on the viewership side, whether that's YouTube, Facebook, or Rumble, or from all the podcasting apps at molibertyradio.us. So we got a lot of things that we can try to cover tonight. Myriad of topics. See, already, Brandon, can't utter words. I was struggling to read something to Brandon before we started the live stream and the recording, and I think I screwed up every other word that I was trying to say. And so it's not going to be it. Listen, I swear to God, Brandon asked me this. He did a wellness check on me. I swear to you, I've had nothing to drink this evening before we started the show, but man, it has been a struggle session. Brandon, I didn't get a chance to tell you this before the show, but next week we're going to have Mike Termott on the show with us. He was able to schedule with us really quickly to talk about something new that he's going to try to do. He's going to discuss that with us, and so be sure to check him out. If you don't know who that was, he ran under the Libertarian ticket. He was one of those in the running for the nod for the Libertarian presidential nominee. So he ended up being the VP in 2024. So that should be an interesting conversation. Like I said, he's proposing some type of new thing that he wants to do. We'll let him tell us all about that and have that conversation next week. I guess the first thing that I want to talk about tonight is because I saw it on X, and then I've heard other people talking about it. Joe Rogan had like Shane Gillis and Mark Norman, and there's one other. I think it's Ari Shaffir, something like that. 3 different comics on his show, and communism came up, and they all 4 said that, free healthcare sounded really great. And it's something Bernie Sanders has proposed, another Medicare for all thing. He's got a proposal. He's promising that it'll save a lot of money. And it sounds really good. It sounds really wonderful when Bernie lays it out, except for the fact that you have to stop thinking when you listen to it. You can't you can't use common sense on it. But before I go rambling off like an old man, Brandon, I'll let you go first instead of me being mouthy old guy. Just lay it out for us. You hear this stuff all the time, and you start wondering about people's mental well-being. So your thoughts on this?
Well, I mean, I just feel like this topic never goes away. Like, it's just constantly being pushed by more and more of the left that we need this Medicare for all system. And they point to like different studies that show like, no, the American people will spend less with Medicare for all and all this. And I cannot stress enough, and I'm going to sound like a broken record, but there are like 150,000 sections of regulation in America on just business in general. Like in the medical field in itself, we have certificate of need laws. I mean, you have the government subsidizing massive amounts of healthcare already. And so, like, not to be a broken record, but it's the government intervention that is making all of this less accessible, less affordable. And every time the government steps in, it gets worse. And you could point to like different reasons, different things, but just in general, when the government gets more involved in something, the price continues to rise and rise. at an exponential rate. And you see it with healthcare. And I think just until most people want government out of healthcare, they're not going to see a reduction in prices or costs. We're just going to be paying more in taxes and less on premiums. But they're not going to. It's still going to cost, because I'm sure, as John's got a whole point built in. I don't want to step on his toes, but the market would solve a lot of more of these problems than more government intervention.
Yeah, I guess the point that I want to make, and it's something I can never find the video back. This is from like 2007, 2008, when Bill Maher was talking about, you had John Edwards, John Kerry, and several other Democrats who were all vying for the nomination to run as the Democrat candidate for president. And they were all talking about their health care plans. And Bill Maher was speaking about it. And he said, the funny thing is, in this is prescriptions and doctor's office visits and everything are mentioned 70, 80 times or more. Like eating healthy and exercise and things like that, top maybe 3 times. And I find it funny because the Democrats seem to be beholden to the science. They seem to be at the Fauci altar when it comes to government control of things. And so they want to complain about the price of healthcare, and they want to act like they're sticking up for the middle class and the lower class. But these are the same people who were okay with was it up to around 29% of small businesses closing because of lockdowns and shutdowns. I don't know. Was that looking out for the lower and middle class when you were silent about these things? You went full force, vaccine mandates, all these things. And I would think that if you had government in total control of healthcare with a Medicare for all plan, they roll out all the vaccines and stuff you want. But does it incentivize healthy behavior? Does it incentivize people eating better and exercising and doing these things? Or is it incentivizing them to eat whatever they want because they think it's free? That word, they don't understand what that word means, that they'll just go to the doctor whenever because it's free. And then we're already one of the sickest nations in the world. We have a plethora of food to eat. You really don't have any starving people in this country. And we're one of the sickest countries in the world, which is a tremendous burden on our healthcare system. And instead of saying, gee, maybe we should talk about being healthier, it's just, again, I'm not a doctor. I'm not pretending to be a doctor. I'm not giving you healthcare advice. I'm just saying that a group of people who just want to send you to the doctor so you can get any prescription pill that they can cram down your throat maybe isn't the best option. And again, that I've stated this on this for the 70th time on this show, all they had to have done was write a bill that said you could put insurance across state lines, and you would have driven competition and lower prices, and they did the opposite. Also, Democrats don't want to think about something else too, because there's this shortage of this and shortage of that, but they don't seem to want to fight the certificate of need thing that many states have, that says, oh, you want to open up another doctor's office, you want to open a hospital, you want to open up a clinic. Guess what you have to do? You have to ask permission from a board of other owners of other hospitals. What incentive would they have to let competition come in? None. There is none. So these people that don't like monopolies seemingly back systems that create monopolies. Medicare for all, certificate of need, things of this nature create monopolies. They create a shortage of beds, MRI and CAT scan machines, ambulatory services. It restricts those and shrinks the amount that's available to the people. And it doesn't incentivize healthy behavior. And because you throw that word free around, it gets a lot of people wrapped up. Folks, the reason, as Brandon so eloquently said, the reason healthcare prices are expensive is because the government stuck their hand in it. What all the Cadillac plans that used to exist, they're freaking gone. They're gone. Used to have Cadillac plans that would cover a lot of stuff and still kept your deductibles and things lower. But they decided if you have one of those, even though you were told if you like your plan, you can keep your plan. If you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor. You were told all of these things. And then if you had a Cadillac plan, the business you worked for that offered that was going to get taxed for it. So the companies are like, I'm not paying an extra tax to give my employees a better healthcare plan. So they dropped it like a bad habit. The question is, how do we get people to understand that government intervening into something they're already intervening into is the worst possible decision you could make? And again, getting people to understand that government backing out of things is the best thing for them. That's about the hardest message that you can push right now. That is like mission impossible to get people to understand that less government is better. Because they just think the right people haven't been in control yet. So we just got to find the right person. The right person's going to be out there somewhere, Brandon. I mean, am I crazy, or have we not found the right person to run all this stuff yet?
Oh, I'm liking James Tallarico out of Texas. I think he might be the right guy.
I haven't heard anything that guy's really said.
Oh, man, he's got some crazy takes on religion. I mean, I don't know if he's a pastor or if he just pretends to be that folksy when he talks, but he's dangerous. I think I've mentioned it on the show before. I think he's dangerous just because seems the most outwardly relatable. But no, I also think they do the same thing in mental health. Like, they don't actually want to try to make you like self-sufficient. They don't want to like fix you. They want to continue to put the Band-Aid on it, because if you did all the right things and then you started to feel better naturally without their medication, then they would just be out a customer. And so the business incentive would be to get you on these drugs, get you build a tolerance to them, and then they get you on a higher dosage, and it's more expensive. And so you're constantly in the cycle. Instead of, working to find the root causes, they just, continue to blanket the symptoms to line their own pockets. And so, yeah, I think you see a lot of that. And it goes back to, they're just trying to fill prescriptions. That's what the healthcare industry is all about, is just filling prescriptions. And so I think that's what they're after in that way too. And so, yeah, it's a corrupt system. Get the government out of it. Let people try holistic natural remedies, give people more choices. I think it's I'm not saying I want drug dealers on every corner, but it is crazy how the government and the FDA has a monopoly on prescription drugs. Like, if you're 18 and you need like an antiviral, you have to go to your doctor who has to prescribe it to you instead of being able to just go buy it, which seems, like a racket in itself.
Up. I don't know what's going on right now. Brandon is frozen. Okay, now he's back. You froze up. Like, I wasn't getting any audio from my end.
Am I good now?
You're good now.
I was just saying that I think in general that, like, for a lot of medications that need prescriptions, they could just be over the counter. I mean, you're not, maybe if you had them like locked behind a special shelf that someone had to go get, but where you don't have to go to a doctor to get a prescription for it. Like, certain laxatives for babies, you have to go get a prescription for. They don't, offer it behind the counter. And so it's just like certain things you're like, okay, now I had to go through all these extra hoops to get this medication. Seems like a racket.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's just, and you get like, what is that? Was it Mo? Well, where they started tracking your prescription, what, your prescriptions you get from the pharmacy. I can't remember the name of that act. They did that to us too and said, oh, well, we have to track all this stuff. And they, the Missouri legislature, they kicked it back several years and then they caved at the end. And um, have to look at your health care and make sure you're not getting too much pseudoephedrine, I guess, at the pharmacy, so you don't go home and create your own meth lab and become a meth cartel type of person. I don't know. You tell me, you figure it out. Good evening, Agorizer. Yeah, you are right, Brandon. It does come up a lot. It just seems like every election cycle, this resurfaces, and it just seems like, especially with the amount of DSA people who are winning their primaries, are winning elections, this is going to become more prevalent. So we have to try to attempt, or we have to attempt to debunk this ideology that government running healthcare and giving it to you for free is the answer. We have to debunk these things, and we have to be good stewards of the liberty message, as far as government intervening even farther into health insurance. Now, when the ACA was on the floor of the House and Senate, it was passing through the chambers, unread, of course, because Nancy Pelosi told us so. We have to pass it to know what's in it. There were people admitting they knew it was going to fail and create a single payer system at one time. It could not hold up. So they did this under the premise that they knew it was going to fail at some point. It wasn't going to be good enough. Now, I heard a stat today that said people dying from lack of health care in this country is 18 and a half to every 100,000 people. The average in countries with socialized health care, like in Europe, that number is 57 and a half. And they have this single payer system, and they have, fully government run healthcare. And the deaths of people waiting on health, some type of procedure or whatever, is higher. And you know how many people from Canada come to the US because they, it might be an orthopedic type surgery or something, but their wait time in Canada might be 6 months to a year. So they come across the border and have it done in the US because they can get it done faster, and they'll just pay for it because it's not, they're in pain and they want to get it done. That happens a lot too. We just have to, we have to be good about spreading the message. I'll give you a good example too. I know I've talked about this on the show, but one time at the factory that I work at, we had people from the Canadian factory come down for a few days for this boot camp. And one of my coworkers like, yeah, if it wasn't such cold climate up there, I'd move to Canada. The guy's like, why? She's like, well, you get free healthcare. And he's like, it's Friday, right? I'm like, yeah. He's like, it's payday. And we're like, okay. He goes, look, I'll show you my check stub. He's like, that ain't free. He's like, the amount of taxes I pay. He's like, it's not free. He's like, it's not even close to free. He's like, they hammer me every week. So no. And they just, the persons that made the statement, oh, you get free healthcare. That person locked up the brakes pretty quick and like, oh, guess it's not. It's like, yeah, they make it sound really awesome. But just talk to, sometimes that's all you have to do. You have to talk to people who live it. And they'll generally be like, unless they're just dyed in the wool, like, oh, I love big government and all of its policies. Normal people are like, this kind of sucks. You just got to get perspectives from people other than the media and your politicians. And maybe you might learn a little more of the reality of what these people live with as far as taxation and their health care and all this other stuff. So, maybe to get some outside perspective on this, you don't always have to take the experts' advice, because a lot of times that's landed us in a pretty dire situation after listening to these people and them guiding us through something, guiding us into the depths of hell. Go ahead, Brandon.
Oh, just you know, it has to be said when you're talking about a topic like this that the billionaires in this country, even with all of their wealth, not cash on hand, but even if you took all of their wealth combined, you cannot fund the government. Like like you eat like that's the two things they say. It's Medicare for all and tax the rich, and they act like the one will solve the other. Like we're going to tax the rich, and that's going to pay for this Medicare for all system, and that could not be farther from the truth. You could not take enough money from the millionaires and billionaires. Like even if you had all of their combined wealth and liquidated it, but then you'd have no businesses, you'd have nowhere to work, you'd have no industry in America, you'd have no GDP, you'd have no like it would be nothing. And so you're not going to have the millionaires and billionaires, you're not going to be able to raise their taxes to pay for a Medicare for all system. It's going to come from the middle class. Like this is only going to benefit the very, very low income earners. Anyone in the middle and upper class is going to pay for this healthcare. You're going to pay more. And so, I mean, they're selling a bill of goods right now. But when it comes time for the average American to pay for, and it's not like everyone in America is like working really hard towards a healthy lifestyle and, you know, nobody wants to go see the doctor. We're all eating fruits and vegetables. No, like you were saying earlier, we all eat terrible. We're one of the fattest countries on the planet. We have a super high obesity rate. And so if you're middle class and healthy, you're just paying extra money for someone else's healthcare because they do not have the money, or the millionaires and billionaires do not have the money. And you think the politicians are just going to go take that money anyway? The ones that are the politicians that buy the millionaires and billionaires that buy our politicians, they're not going to go after the millionaires and billionaires for this money. If they do enact a single payer system, it's coming out of your paycheck.
Yeah. I just but there are a lot of people who think that you're just going to extract the wealth of all these people and take it. And it's like, no, you're not. You're not going to get it all. And they'll just move the money. They'll move. I don't blame them, right? If somebody said, oh, we're coming after they'll just shift things around. You're never going to get it. And I don't blame them for doing that. If I built a company and just gathered a healthy net, you know, a net worth, and I'm living pretty well, and some jerk from some bureaucracy says, yeah, you owe us more because it's only fair. Yeah, I'll shift things around. You're not getting it. Not without a fight. But I'm not going to just hand it over. Yeah, again, we have to get people to understand they want to blame everything on the billionaires, right? The billionaires didn't fall out of the sky and gain this power in the marketplace. No, they bought it from politicians. The same central planners who give you these stupid ideas of Medicare for all, they're bought by those billionaires that help, you know, again, they help write the regulations to keep their competition at bay and everything else. And I just love how people think the billionaires just have all this power just by having lots of money. No, not at the federal level or even a state level. No, they buy their favors. And why do they do it? And why do they continue to do it? Because it works. It works. Again, let's talk about the ACA. Let's bring the ACA back up for just a minute. Obama had speeches talking about how terrible insurance companies are. But then who came into the White House to help write the ACA? The insurance companies did. They came in and helped write the legislation. Why? So they would be the only ones left standing. So this is just an utterly ridiculous notion that you are somehow these politicians are going to swoop in and save the American people and make healthcare free and better. And there's just no possible way. The solution was there. They didn't want to do that because then they couldn't control those things. And we're here we are with the ACA. Now, another thing I want to go back to, right, when I was talking about the millionaires or the billionaires, the people like to say they have all the power. The billionaires have all the power. I'll tell you, the most power that you can have over a group of people is taxation. That is the greatest power that we face. It's not billionaires. It's the ability to tax the people and steal their wealth is the greatest threat we have. Because unlike us, we have to live within our means. Government doesn't have to. They can come up with a new way to steal more of your wealth. That is the most dangerous thing to a group of people. That you go to work, you put in the hours, you put in the labor, or you create a product and you build a business. And there are a group of people along the East Coast that have the ability to ruin you with just taking wealth or regulating you, which costs you more money, which steals your wealth. That is the greatest threat. That is the most threatening group of people, not Muslims, not people from China. It's a group of a few hundred people who have the ability to tax you out of everything you own and ruin you financially. And you end up losing everything. Or you just have lockdowns and shutdowns that ruins your business. Billionaires didn't do that. Your government did. So just remember that before you decide that you want to give the government more power in healthcare or whatever topic we're speaking of. Just remember the class of people who figure out how much they're going to tax you, they're the most dangerous people. That's the most dangerous group of people, right? Just remember that part. Anything else, Brandon, before we move on?
Nope, I think that's pretty much it.
Okay. So we're gonna delve back into the flock thing. And when Gary's name popped up in a live chat, I remember he sent me something too that I didn't pass on to you, Brandon. But before we get into Jefferson City and all this other stuff, I want to bring this up because there's another site that I was unaware of. Oh, let me see if I can make this maximize here. And I'm just going to kind of go through this. Thank you, Gary, for sending this over. I'm sorry. See, Brandon, here we go. I'm already failing at reading. Have I Been Flocked website lets drivers find out if their vehicles have been searched in flock camera system. See whether your license plate appears in publicly released flock camera audit logs as privacy concerns grow following the misuse of flock by officers. So Monroe County, Georgia, the Have I Been Flocked website lets people search public records to see whether law enforcement agencies' flock camera systems have run their license plates. Jason Hunyar from Durwoody, Georgia, said he became skeptical of flock safety cameras after filing open records requests in his community and finding what he described as misuse. He works with a website that compiles publicly released flock audit logs and lets drivers search for a license plate. Users enter their plate information to search. If your city is using flock, you can search Have I Been Flocked, search by these agencies, and see what searches are being done, Hunyar said. The website relies on public record requests, which means its information may be incomplete, outdated, or unavailable for some agencies. Hunyar encouraged residents to submit their own requests for flock audit logs from local departments. People can still contribute when you're talking about audit logs from their local agency, Hunyar said. It's the people's information. It's our open records. Flock cameras use automated license plate readers to capture vehicle information. Law enforcement agencies can search the system as part of investigations, but recent allegations of misuse have increased public concern about how the technology is accessed. An Indianapolis officer was suspended with a termination recommendation from the chief for allegedly using automated license plate readers for personal reasons, WTHR reported. 3 former Bibb County Sheriff's deputies in Macon, Georgia, were arrested on August 10th after an internal audit allegedly found they used flock license plate data for personal, non-law enforcement purposes. a Milledgeville police major was charged with misusing flock cameras on August 13th. Caleb Reynolds from Monroe County said he didn't know much about flock cameras or the Bibb County cases. It's kind of scary the way technology is advancing so rapidly, and I'm definitely going to be looking into that website. Hunter said his own concerns began after learning a camera in his neighborhood had been hacked. I can't convey how unsettling it was to know that these cameras were just being broadcast live. He said it was a very unnerving feeling. Flock announced new privacy and accountability measures Wednesday, including reducing how long data is available from 30 days to 7 days. The company also said it will use automatic lockouts when its system flags potential misuse, preventing further searches until a supervisor reviews the activity. Existing customers may retain their current data settings, unless they opt into the shorter retention period. So, yeah, that's an interesting little tidbit there. As far as another thing with flock cameras, but it's cool to see this website up, right? And you can see, depending on the records and how available there are, to see if your license plate's been run on a flock camera in your area. So something really cool. Another tool for people who don't trust the surveillance state. And again, we stated this a lot on the show, but that is one thing about humanity, right? There are always those innovators out there who don't like others telling them what to do, and they find these nifty loopholes, or they create websites, or they create software to give you an end around. So as long as humanity decides it doesn't want to be completely lorded over, we still have people like these folks, Mr. Hunyer, who will work with others so that you can get the information or the help you need, or give you a loophole or an end around on some of these things. And we have to celebrate people like that, because those type of people help kind of preserve liberty, or maybe put little roadblocks in the way of bureaucrats and their unending search for more tyrannical measures. So we have to celebrate people like this and thank them if we ever meet them, and say, thanks, buddy. Thanks for putting your thumb in the eye of these jerks who just can't leave us alone. Your thoughts, Brandon?
Well, I think it should. I cannot stand when government is not transparent. It's one of my, personally in political, in the political world, when you have a non-transparent government, and when they act like they don't owe you that information, that really drives me nuts. And so it bugs me that a lot of these cities, their flock camera contracts are all behind these FOIAs and sunshine law requests. And I think if I was in a city council at this point, I would start becoming proactive, and I would post the contract on the city website, or somewhere where the people, it just seems shady when all this information, you've got police officers abusing the cameras, and and people are having to put in requests to get their own data, how their own data is being used, and for exactly how long the flock holds the data, or how long the police department holds the data. Having to request that from the government is, first of all, just annoying, since it's a public entity getting into a contract. That information should be readily and publicly available. But then also, it's almost because you're not doing that, and also because you're not taking the steps to ensure us, it almost seems like you don't want us to know that, which is just about as bad as hiding it for no reason. And so what I actually was going to go to my own city council and speak out against, because we've had a ton of flock cameras popping up in O'Fallon now, all over the place. And there's one 50 yards from my house. And so I was going to go up and protest these cameras, but I did a little bit of research, and the city council last year in O'Fallon approved a new flock camera / drone program for $100,000, or over $50,000 or $60,000 for this contract. And they approved the contract 9-1. So I'm thinking, okay, I could go up there and waste my breath, but the city council's they're not interested, because if the city council approved it last year 9-1, my one opinion on the matter. I'm sure they had both sides. They're like, this is going to be it's privacy versus safety. And I'm sure safety won out at the city council meeting. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in the FOIA requests. I'm going to get as much data on both like the use of the flock cameras and how long they store the data. And then I'm going to go back to then I'm actually going to go to city council and be like, I want, especially if they're holding this data for X amount of time, like we can shorten the amount of time they hold this data for. Not that I don't want them, like I do want them banned completely, because again, like we've talked about before, it's not about what the people in charge right now are going to do with it. It's what the worst person possible in charge would do with it. Having just 50,000 cameras set up around the county. And so, but another thing, I did search like, okay, O'Fallon, Missouri, flock data, flock, whatever. And I found it's on this website called atlasofsurveillance.org. And it said that from a public records request from the Pittsburgh Police Department, which is in, I'm trying to remember, Pittsburgh, Indiana. So the Pittsburgh, Indiana had a flock data request, and O'Fallon Police Department came up and it said it's got 45 different cameras in O'Fallon. And so I guess all of the flock is like connected. And so I did a search of it pulled up this like 900-page contract. I'll share my screen right now just so the people watching will have some idea what I'm looking at here. Okay. Hold on one second. Shoot. All right. And so from this data, from this contract, it says name O'Fallon Mo PD, 42 cameras, relationship access search enabled, device management disabled. And so what I'm imagining, what I'm thinking here is that all of the police departments across the country have all of the access to all of this data. That's what that reads like to me. It says that access granted, management disabled. And so it's also not that you're trusting your own police department with not misusing the data. It sounds like you now have to trust every police department across the country not to be able to misuse your data. It sounds like every police department under Flock has access to these cameras, or at least the one in Pittsburgh, Indiana, had access to the one in O'Fallon, Missouri. Am I missing something here, or is that not crazy to you?
Yeah, I don't like it. It sounds, yeah, it's creepy. I guess that's the word I'm looking for. It's really creepy. I'm just going to look up, can police departments look at flock cameras in other localities, if I can spell. Customers own all their own data. Flock will never share or sell data with third parties. The customer is the only one to determine who has access to the footage.
But
so,
what if, what, like the Pittsburgh PD, that's a customer. So do they have access to customer data? That wouldn't be third party. That's a Flock customer.
Right. Okay, so here's,
and I understand in a sense where, like, if you had a missing person, like under the, the examples that all of the pro Flock people use, like you had a missing person and you had a license plate. So then you're doing like a nationwide search on these Flock cameras for that license plate. Cause you're not, if they were in St. Louis and then they drove to Kansas City, you'd catch them in a Kansas City Flock. I get the premise behind it.
Well, here's this thing. This popped up in a search. Data for Justice Project from the ACLU of Massachusetts. Now, their site says police in Texas, Florida, and thousands of other departments nationwide can track Massachusetts drivers in real time without a warrant, probable cause, or even reasonable suspicion of wrongdoing. Documents obtained by the ACLU of Massachusetts reveal that police across the state are collecting detailed information about the locations of Massachusetts driver and sharing that information with a network of over 7,000 agencies and organizations all over the country, including in states that have passed laws banning abortion and gender affirming health care for minors, and laws requiring police to conduct civil immigration enforcement operations. So I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that if Massachusetts says share away and they're opening it up, that if your state says, yeah, you can be in another state and track our drivers, then it's okay. So even if the customer has the right or just says they're the be all end all and they say share away, then yeah, police in other states can track you. Now that should not be allowed at all. I'm sorry. Your state, if your state is and your municipalities and localities are getting these flock cameras and they're saying, hey, anybody want to check, log into our cameras, have at it. That's a problem. That's a big problem. So, I guess Flock gets these big contracts and offer up these cameras, and they're like, and it gives them kind of a blanket type of immunity almost, where they're like, well, we didn't okay it, your state did. It's like, yeah, but you also make that available. Like, they're not hacking the Flock system and giving the opportunity for other states to see drivers in their state. That you have still created a network, a nationwide network of cameras with the availability of that state or locality to just let anybody else in and look at it. And that is irresponsible. And I would think that that should be unconstitutional. A warrantless tracking of you that's unconstitutional. That's a Fourth Amendment violation. It shouldn't even go. It should just be dead in the water. But here we are.
I'm not trying to, pass blame too much here, because obviously the people behind Flock are culpable. I'm sure they are well-connected people too. I'm sure they know all of the people in the top law enforcement brass and all of those all those associations that have those massive conventions in like Hawaii and Vegas, and they, all the bells and whistles with the, on their buffet dinners. I'm sure that Flock is in that network, but the onus and the where your ire should be is government, because what Flock is offering is surveillance. And there are private companies, like if you had like at a bank, the camera system that monitors the bank in case someone robs it. Like, no one's arguing that that's bad. What's bad is the connection with government, setting it up to surveil the people without a warrant all the time. That's the bad part. And that is what's being done by the government. And so, yeah, Flock and their I'm sure their lobbyist efforts, their pressure campaigns, all of that is bad. And I'm not trying to say that like you can't fight two fights at once. But I'm not nearly as mad at the people who work at Flock and even the leaders at Flock. I'm not nearly as mad at them as I am my city government officials for allowing them to put up those cameras and paying them to do it. Like, that's where your ire needs to be, is on the city governments and the county governments and those police departments that are implementing this mass surveillance in your area. And so, like, and some cities are pulling away from Flock, to go to Axon or whatever the other ones are. Like, they're just going to competitor brands. Like, if you think the city of LA got rid of their Flock cameras because of the pro-liberty individualists that live in LA, you're out of your mind. They're switching companies, and someone else is going to be tracking all that data in LA and making a huge fortune off of it. But your anger, it needs to be directed at the government officials who are signing the contracts. They're the ones who are screwing you
and spending your money to do it. They steal money from you, and then they put up a surveillance web, if you will. So yeah, no, you're absolutely right, Brandon. Yeah, you can be mad at Flock, but you should be mad at the government agencies who decide to institute these cameras and create this massive surveillance operation. And again, if your state says share away, Now you've got people, law enforcement in other states who can just, why they would need to do this? Why would somebody in Texas need to go, I'm just going to make up a license plate and see if I can look, or what? I don't know. I don't care what their reasoning is. I don't understand why you'd allow that, except, well, it is Massachusetts and they're very liberal and they don't really care about privacy and property rights and that kind of stuff, clearly, with their rules and laws and regulations that they have on the books. So, yeah, it is quite interesting. And apparently, the Jefferson City, Missouri, they had a vote last night whether they wanted to renew their contract with Flock. And they said, yeah, they had one dissenting vote and the rest of them said yes. And the police department was like, well, it's helped solve 3 murders and things like that. It's like, this argument keeps coming up. It helped solve a murder. It helped track down some carjackings and stuff like that. And it's like, okay. But the amount of surveillance that's just being done, the amount of data being collected by these cameras does not offset the few crimes that it's helped you solve. I'm sorry. You can't treat every innocent citizen like a criminal to help you catch a few criminals. The amount of people, the amount of license plates that get logged on those readers, and it's held for 30 days or whatever else, does not offset the fact that you caught a few carjackers or a few murderers. I'm sorry. It's the same way with the Patriot Act, right? We got to fight the terrorists. Why? By collecting information on every citizen? Emails, phone calls, text messages? This is okay? What? Your chances of being killed by a terrorist are so infinitesimally small. Well, it'd be a lot smaller if we weren't doing these stupid wars overseas, but I digress. But your chances of being killed by a terrorist in the United States are so slim. And 9/11 was the catalyst needed to build a surveillance state. And now we have these flock cameras and these states and counties and cities and towns who are accepting them with open arms. And some of these very same people who would tell you they're probably against, they didn't like the Patriot Act. Okay, then why are you doing this? How against them are you really? How against a mass surveillance state are you really if you're not going to fight flock cameras? That's the question that I pose.
Well, you could make this argument about anything too.
Yes.
Like you could say, we're going to cut the speed limit of Missouri, the max speed limit for every road, to 40 miles an hour. Do you know how many lives we're going to save on the road when you can only go 40 miles an hour? Screw the economic consequences. Screw everything else. No. 40-mile-an-hour speed limits. And then also, what would make the police's job a lot easier? Outlaw all guns. That would make that might stop one or two murders. Someone who wanted to murder someone and couldn't get a gun, that might happen under this scenario. Criminals tend to not care about gun laws usually, but you might stop one or two people who would have went off the deep end if you just outlaw all guns. Screw all future potential negative consequences of giving the state the monopoly on violence and force. Let's just ban all guns because we might save a life or two. Same thing. We're going to speed limits 40 miles an hour to save a couple lives. Worth it, right, John? To make the police's job a little easier?
Well, I would say that I think you'd probably see an uptick in road rage. So are you saving lives on a 40 mile an hour? Like people who are running late to work, now the speed limit's 40. They're just driving like maniacs, cutting in and out, and someone's driving too slow, and they're like, and they just lose their mind, and road rage goes up. So, of course, they won't look at the actual outcome. They're only looking at the intent of lowering that speed limit to 40, or, as you say, taking all the guns away. Then you have a UK situation where then you have to ban certain knives. Unless you're a certain type of, like you're a sheik and a knife is part of your religion, then you get to have that. But other citizens have to put their knives in a box outside on the sidewalk somewhere. Yeah, it's all about intent and not about outcome. But no, your point is valid. Yes. It's the blanket, this one size fits all approach. It never works. Ever, 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 ever. It's just like the war on drugs. It's just like prohibition, right? It never works. Prohibition never works. You take all the guns away. Look at these countries. Stabbings, beatings, whatever else. Also, the rape gangs that were in UK, I think they're still probably kind of prevalent. You think if citizens were armed, you'd have that problem? I bet you wouldn't. I bet if if everyone was carrying a samurai sword even, you probably would have less of that. If people started losing hands because they got a little gropey, you'd probably slim that margin of the sexual assaults down quite a bit if you were going to lose a hand or have a big hole in you because you decided to be pervy and couldn't keep your hands to yourself. So I'm just saying, maybe, just maybe, you take away. I guess the question is, where do you end up if you just take away people's natural right of self-defense? What's the end result? Do you get a downtrodden people? Do you get people just giving up? Or do you create a culture where finally you get a lot of angry citizens coming at you in ways that you couldn't comprehend at some point because they get so fed up with and maybe there's a little self-disgust with that too, like, I can't believe we gave up our guns to these idiots. And I don't know how many bulldozers are in the UK per se, but what if you just get a massive killdozers or whatever? I don't know. Listen, at some point, I would hope that humanity or people in these countries will just go, you know what? We tried it your way. Your way sucks really, really bad. So, yeah, your gun laws, we're going to ignore them. We're just going to send airplanes over here loaded with firearms. We'll all be at the airport to pick them up. And you're more than welcome to try to take them away from us. Good luck with that. I don't know. But at some point, I would hope that people in these countries would finally say, your version of protecting the public doesn't work. Especially when you just willy-nilly invite other cultures in who don't have the same, who come from areas where the type of behavior that you typically frown upon seems to be more rabid or prevalent in their country, and they think they can come to your nation because you just let them in willy-nilly, and they think they can act the same way in your nation. And then your leaders turn around and go, hey, let's not discuss the sexual assault culture that seems to be very prevalent here. And then they decide to put you in jail because maybe you said something about it on social media. At what point do you finally rise up? I'm trying to figure it out. Like, when do you get so fed up with the nanny state trying to protect you from everything under the sun, unless it's a different culture that you don't want to offend? When do you do that? There's a candidate in the state of Washington or Oregon. I can't remember. She's running for Congress, I believe. And someone pointed out that she has nothing. I don't know if she's a Democratic Socialist or she's a Democrat. Can't remember. But someone's like, hey, there's nothing about LGBT rights in your site, like things that you want to uphold or defend or whatever. And she's like, well, yeah, but that might offend some Muslims. So you're going to let a culture that's prevalent in another country, you're going to let that affect. Now, again, the LGBT thing, I don't really get all wrapped up in it, right? I don't go, oh, we gotta like do all the, but it's the fact that a Democrat says I might offend Muslims if I put that on my site. Like, most of these Muslims come from other countries. So you're letting outside influence affect your policies because you don't want to offend them. Think about that. That is insane. I wish I could remember that. It's like the goofball from, was it Michigan or whatever, that said Thanksgiving was the most horrible uh holiday ever, and then they asked her later what her favorite holiday was. She's like, Thanksgiving. But it's like, you just said like a week ago that Thanksgiving was the most horrible thing, and now you say it's your favorite holiday. These are the kind of people that either win elections or almost win elections. She was winning, and then she lost to whatever that dude's name was, but she was winning right up towards the end, and then she ended up losing. But that's the type of people that get votes. And you're like, how did we get here? And when do we get fed up with people like that and say, you're retarded, and it's okay to be retarded if you're just born that way, but you're retarded in a different sense where you can't put together logical thoughts and then not flip-flop every 30 seconds when you figure out that you made a lot of people mad talking about Thanksgiving. I don't know. It's just, when do you get fed up with people like this? Holy smoke.
It just shows that Democrats can only run on hope and unity. Like, they can't
Yes.
run on policy anymore at all, because half of their base conflicts with the other half of their base. Like, they went with this giant, like big umbrella to help Obama win in 2012, and then they tried to carry that over into 2016, and now you've got you're trying to be too open, and your culture clash just doesn't work like that. Like if you, I don't know, I don't want to say too much of the wrong thing here, but well, I guess I'll just throw it this. Have you seen that Ryan Long bit where, because sometimes he does, he's the stand-up comedian, but he goes onto the street and he'll do like street interviews with the leftists at the protests.
Oh man.
And so he's like, most of the transgender people in America are white women that have transitioned. He's like, how do you think we could get more cultures into the trans community? How do you think we could get more Black people or more Muslim people to become trans? And the lady's like, well, it's a cultural issue. And he's like, well, some cultures are clearly better than other cultures. And the lady was like, well, I don't know about that. And he's like, well, those cultures don't believe it's right to be trans. He's like, so how do you feel about that? And you can see her head computing, like she had lost, like she was, well, he's got a point. They're not the, they're not the right culture, but, or the, he's like, so would you say in that particular instance, one culture is better than another culture? That's what that reminds me of. That, like, what he did to that lady is what, essentially what she's running on. It's like, you got to be open. Well, open to Muslims or open to gays? Oh,
it reminds me of that, of what was it? His stand-up rate. This is terrible, but it's funny. Where he's talking about, the transgender went from female to a male, went shot up a place, and he's like, she was fine the whole time. 1 month of buying her own drinks. Dude, I lost. I was like, that is so good.
Yeah.
Oh God. He is. Yeah. He likes to push the envelope, and I love it. Yeah. Brandon and I were talking about, if that man ever comes to St. Louis, I think there's a very good chance that Brandon and myself will be buying tickets seated right next to each other, laughing like maniacs at his comedy. It's pretty good stuff.
I'm trying to think. I had one, another. Oh, it was, if you're, oh man, I lost it again. I'm sorry. It was, oh, never mind. If I think of it, I'll say it. But it's another Ryan Long good one.
But here's a segue, a short segue into what Brandon was just saying. This is a good segue into a little thing I wanted to pull up from our favorite Tim Jim Jones. He loves to post this every day, but talk about, the Democrat Party being split. There's a Republican Party here in Missouri has the same issue. The People's Speaker. It says it's Tuesday, August 18th, 2026, and there are 0 conservative, citizen-led, direct democracy, constitutional amendments on the ballot for the November 2026 general election or any election thereafter. Zero conservative citizen-led initiatives, while left-wing billionaires continue to assault the Missouri Constitution with rage mob direct democracy and their unending parade of horribles. This is why the abhorrent anti-constitutional republic rage mob initiative petition process should be abolished. And
Oh,
go ahead.
oh, but
we
while you had it up, pull it back up for a second because
Okay.
it's bugging me real quick.
Okay.
He's got citizen led like spelled like lead, like metal. It should be LED.
Oh,
Like
yes.
citizen led petitions, citizen lead. There are zero conservative citizen lead. Zero conservative
Well, let's see.
citizen lead.
Let's see. Should I just
No one?
put, should I, hold on. Should it read citizen led? Should I put that? Should I correct his
I
spelling?
think yeah.
Okay. There we go. We'll fix his.
No.
I don't know. The dude, again, we talk about Democrats and their kind of bifurcation, but we have that problem with Republicans in here too. And again, take for instance SEPA. Even though we had some courts strike it down, right? SEPA was citizen led. That was a grassroots coalition that got that pushed through. They put up enormous pressures. Gold and silver, even though it was done unconstitutionally, that was a huge citizen-led initiative by a lot of people who loved gold and silver across the country. So yeah, they might not be doing all these now. They tried to do. It came really close here several years back, getting personal property tax, the removal of personal property tax on the ballot. And there's been some other ones. And yeah, the problem is citizen-led initiative process that doesn't have generally a lot of money backing it. That takes dedication, hard work, non-paid signature gathering, all that stuff. So, and I'll let you, because I don't want to step on your point, because I know you want to talk about this. I know you have a point to make here, but yeah, it is harder for citizen-led because they're doing it. They're doing all the footwork. They're putting in all the work, trying to build a coalition. And I'm sorry that we can't all be Jim Joneses and just sit behind the mic and be former Speaker of the House and profess how awesome we are, and then just fail on the amendments that they thought were so awesome it was going to pass unless you were a Democrat. So anyway, I'll let you bring up your point there, Brandon.
Well, first, I got a few points. First,
Go ahead.
You shouldn't need a conservative citizen-led initiative petition with a majority of Republicans in the House and the Senate, and have had the governorship for like a decade. So you're right. There aren't any conservative citizen-led initiative petitions because they should be able to get that done through the legislature. Now, I've said it before on this show. I do think that the initiative petition process is mostly done by big lobbyists and big donors. It's just part of like how many signatures you need to gather in that particular amount of time. But the craziest part is when they were trying to pass Amendment 5, and they were like, okay, well, what if you don't want certain industries to, have their sales tax raised or a new tax on certain industries? And they go, get a lobbyist. Like that was their response, was like, well, then you can get a lobbyist and go down to Jeff City and fight for you. And you're like, okay, but the citizen, like all of these lobbyists come in for a push on something, on an initiative petition, that it's the same lobbyist game. And then I've said this before too. It drives me nuts when these people act like these initiative petitions didn't pass with a majority vote. Like most Missourians didn't want the things that a majority of Missourians voted for. It's like, I can disagree with what got put in. I can think that some parts are good, some parts are bad to certain bills, that some add freedom, but they add a lot of taxation. Yeah, there's like a lot wrong with the initiative petitions that have been passed in Missouri. But to say that they weren't, like, that a majority of Missourians didn't support them is just a lie.
Yeah, again, the gaslighting and everything else, certainly, it would be great. Go ahead.
Oh, I saw a video of Nick Schroer when you said gaslighting. I don't know.
Oh, it's him with the flamethrower.
Yeah,
Yes.
dude, that corny politics stuff. Like when Nick Greitens, when Eric Greitens had his Rhino or his ISIS hunting tags on his website back in 2016, he's riding this Trump wave of like, we're gonna go get ISIS, and he's playing that political game. And like, yeah, that was, like it had a feel to it. I'm not gonna lie. It was like, oh wow, he's got the ISIS hunting tag. This guy's crazy. But now, like, we've had that the one lady the Valentina Gomez, who ran in Missouri, and then she had that one ad where she just takes a pistol to that crash test dummy, shoots it in the back of the head, and goes, "That's what we should do to illegal immigrants." And like, and I've seen other people like post videos where they're like burning stuff with flamethrowers or shooting things with their ARs, and it's just, I'm not even certain, but I'm pretty sure it's AI generated, and it's just, I almost want to look it up and pull it up if I get a second, because it's just such a hacky political thing to do in this kind of time. It's like, you guys just got smashed on your initiative petitions and you're like, we're burning down the system. We've been in charge for a decade, but the system's, it's time to burn. It's like, oh man, you're gross.
Yeah, it is. You have to admit that election time does bring out the crazy in a lot of people. It brings out a significant amount of crazy from the people and from people who are running for office. Yes, and now we have to have the hacky, corny, I'm going to pull out my gun. I saw Rick Bratton, he's got his tailgate down his truck, he's picking up a rifle and stuff. I'm like, the problem with it is it works on people. That's the part that sucks. It works on people. People buy this. And it's like, are you freaking kidding me right now? Like, just because the guy pulls out a gun doesn't mean he's going to be constitutional or any of that stuff. It's freaking ridiculous. What in the heck is this?
This is Nick Schroer.
Oh, wow.
I don't think it's real. Like,
there's no way he has one of those.
Like a bazooka, like the heat coming off of that. Like, you would not be able to stand that close.
No.
You would, like, your face would be not melted, but dude, that fireball that close. Again, AI generated slop for political season. Oh.
Yeah, that's God. But you know what? On that crowd that follows them just unthinkingly and just goes along to get along or whatever. Oh man, they eat that stuff up. Now, they do get ratioed a lot, but it works on a certain segment of the population. That's the unfortunate part. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love firearms, dude. Love them to death. Wish I had 1,000 more guns than I already do. I wish I had a 1911 for every day of the week, all different brands, right? But I don't. But I wish I did. But it doesn't make me have the ability to govern better or, it's just like, oh, the guy has a lot of guns, but he might think that we should take people over the age of 75 and just put them out of their misery because they're a drain on the system. You never know. Like, right? And Nick Schroer is one of these guys that he puts on a good show. And he's really good at trying to troll people. It falls flat, but he does really try hard to troll people. It's just ridiculous, like middle school mean girl stuff, but he tries really hard. So I think if we ever have a bureaucracy of gaslighting and trolling, like Tim Jones and Nick Schroer will definitely be, and Tom Estes, by the way, those three will probably head up that agency of trolling and like mean girl tactics. They'll definitely be heading that up, and then they can brag about who they called names that day or whatever. I know, some childish crap.
It's just that like you definitely expect that kind of stuff from guys like Patterson and like classical establishment Republicans. Like you expect a level of like pandering and like just all political rhetoric, but from people who've like branded themselves as like anti-establishment and like I've seen Nick Schroer post taxation is theft, which in a lot of circumstances I would be like, wow, a sitting Missouri senator saying taxation is theft. Like we're making a lot of good progress. But then Gaslight Nick Schroer just lights gas on his X page. And he should be on this show debating 4 and 5. Like he should be on this show with us, like Bryant Wolfen is, having the real conversations about like his agenda. But instead, he shows that he's much more like the establishment guys. He's not interested in anything actual freedom oriented. He's not interested in even having the conversation with the people who are freedom oriented. He's interested in, like you said, the mean girl tactics of like, well, we're not the left and we don't have to listen to you. Like we're better than the left, so we get away with everything. Like, yeah, sure, if that's how you want to live, but I'm telling you, you're on borrowed time because people are waking up.
I certainly hope so, because Nick acts like anyone else that's come out of that legislative body in Jefferson City wanting to move to Congress. He acts exactly like it. That he's got the same rhetoric, the same trolliness, the same tough guy. Ooh, look at me. I got a flame-throwing RPG launcher or whatever. I'm burning stuff. And you're like, yeah, you're burning the Constitution. Congratulations, you nutcase. But yeah, so he just acts like, and I've stated this for the last several years. This isn't a new thought, that Nick Schroer acts like he has he is motivated to climb the political ladder to higher offices, and that's more than likely going to be Congress. I can't see it being governor or anything like that statewide. I can see him doing a congressional run. And let me tell you, if there's a Republican in the White House when he goes to run, he will be one that sucks up to every single policy. He will pass the rhetoric down from the federal level to his election in the state. He will do everything to be in lockstep with the party and regurgitate all the nonsense, China buying farmland and all that stuff. He'll just regurgitate every stupid talking point. And it's like, are you guys have any original thoughts at all? No, it's all the same just the same crap ad nauseum. And it's like, come on, guys. These people aren't dumb. They really aren't. Most of them are smart, but their actions make them seem like they're about as sharp as a bag of wet hair. It's like, what are you doing? But again, unfortunately, in election times, that type of rhetoric works on too many people in the population who are probably unbeknownst to themselves, hooked on an establishment nanny state, and they have to have someone there to protect certain nanny things that the government does that they couldn't bear to see go by the wayside. So Brandon, you brought this to my attention. Just real quick, I don't. Well, it's gone now. That's cool. Somebody is proposing an amendment in Missouri for the Constitution to basically ban biometric readers, flock cameras, blah, 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 blah. It's a long post. I just pulled up the thing, and then suddenly Facebook's like, you don't need to see that right now, and dumped it. So we're not going to cover that, but Brandon brought this to me. Let me share my screen. And Brandon, if you just kind of want to talk us through this a little bit, I don't expect you to read the whole thing, but give us a good gloss over on this.
Well, basically the what committee was it? A committee in the House of Representatives for Missouri came up with an AI infrastructure community evaluation framework. So their goal behind it was for like the citizens of a town, possibly like the city council, the county council, the board of aldermen, and then also for potential offerers of data centers for AI infrastructure, basically to outline, what a city should be looking for, what this community should be looking for, and the different ways that the data center is what am I looking for? The way that they like enact their proposals and for their reasoning. And so, like if you scroll down to that box, they have, it's got, actually keep going. So right there. So it's got like the required proposed format. So it would have like an executive summary, which tells them about like everything they want to put into it, the risks, the requested incentives, like the tax abatements, the qualifications and team, technical infrastructure plan, fiscal and community impact, which I get is all fine and dandy. Like all of this is good in a sense, but first of all, seems very commonsensical to me. Like it should, like if you care about the data center, if you're one of those people who doesn't blindly just believe in private property rights, and you think that like you have your vested interest in the community, then all of this really should be a no-brainer, right? It's all of the things that we talk about with data centers to begin with. Like what kind of incentives are they getting? What kind of utility, like electric, water, like phasing, what all, should the data center, all that information should they be providing? What we've seen though is different with these data centers, they just lie about what they're going to do, and then they do what they want to do anyway. Didn't you play a video last week of a guy who was talking about how the data center was like kept building on and building on? Or am I tripping?
No, I didn't play it, but I don't think we got to the video, but no, I didn't play that. I just know that there's a guy from Google, or that worked for Google and data centers, that went to a meeting and said, "Listen, I helped build these things, and these companies are lying to you flat out." But we didn't play a video from that.
Oh, well, there's a video circulating of a guy, and I think the video might be a little bit older now, but the city enacted like a plan for a data center, and they had hard lines where they're like, you're not allowed to build mechanical equipment here from here to here. All new parking and all these other things have to be done on like certain sections. There was like very strict limitations to what this data center was allowed to put in and where it was allowed to put it in, and it violated all of it. Like they had these massive diesel powered like running things in like 150 yards past someone's backyard, when there was supposed to be like a massive stretch of land that was for like non-mechanical use, so they wouldn't have the noise impact and they wouldn't have the air pollution impact. It would be on like a different part of the building, a different, farther away from the people. They just totally blew past all of that. They started building these massive water towers in people's backyards. And then with all of the new equipment came all of these new surveillance cameras. So then all of these people's backyards were being surveilled by all of these cameras all the time. I mean, in someone's backyard, like in not like a big backyard with a guy who's got like tons and tons of acres. No, a guy who's on like an eighth of an acre plot with a fenced in yard, and right behind him is like all this stuff to run the data center with all these cameras pointed at his house. So anyway, like again, some of this stuff is nice, and like, yeah, it's what these companies should be offering up if they're proposing data centers. Because as you're scrolling through, it's got like one of the ones at the top for this is like what the offerer will do for utilities. What will the offerer do? Why is it doing it? And so like, yeah, like this framework could be useful, like this layout that they made, but I think it could also be a way for data centers to just like fill out a form And like, guys, don't worry, you're at ease. The data center put on the form, but then when they violate it, what's the cost? If they're not violating it to any strict penalties, then what's the difference of like, if you've got a law but there's no punishment for the crime, then you really don't have a law.
Yeah, here's my thing, Brandon. Again, you wanna ask the questions. Feel free to ask the questions. I hope the citizens of the community will ask a question, but the the narrative right now, and especially from people who are so-called conservative champions who are trying to get you to believe the data centers are not so bad, right? Here's my problem. It's always what's it going to do for the town? What's it going to do for the government of the town? This will bring in more tax revenue. And I'm frankly sick of that narrative. Like, dude, what? Okay, so again, we're treating the government like it's a corporation. And a lot of towns are incorporated. So they are, in fact, some form of a corporation. And all these people look at this like, oh man, it's going to make the town a bunch of tax revenue. Who freaking cares, man? Like at the end of the day, my goal is not to get the city a bunch more tax revenue. That's the way they constantly look at these things. Well, look how much more tax revenue it'll bring to the town. Don't care. Don't care. My problem is like what the example you just gave, Brandon, right? They were supposed to stay within these boundaries. They didn't. What are the repercussions? Because if I, as a citizen of that town, put my fence into my neighbor's yard, they're going to go raise hell with the city, and I'm going to have to pull up that amount of fencing and move it over onto the property line. It's not going to stand, right? As a citizen, if you do something to someone else's property, generally you're going to get hammered for it. There's going to be fines, you're pay restitution, whatever. Data centers can come in and look like there's not going to be any repercussions for what they've done to other people's private property. And because there's going to be a massive tax revenue like generated from this. I'm just at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if it's the federal government, it's the state government, it's the county government, or if it's your local government. It is supposed to be of the people, right? It's supposed to be for the people. So why do we constantly treat all these things as a benefit to the city? Again, these data centers, yes, they bring in a lot of people from outside to build it. Once it's built, it needs like 10, 20 people max. Most people who are going to be doing the maintenance of the servers and everything on here, you might get one or two people from that town, but generally they're all going to be people from outside of town. Now they'll move into that town, right? And they'll buy a house, and now you have more taxpayers there. But the people of the town aren't really feeling too much of an impact from this where it's positive, like their taxes will go down. No, they won't. It doesn't matter how much tax revenue comes in from a data center. Say they get no abatement, the city sees a considerable increase in tax revenue. Do you think they're going to lower the taxes for the people in town? Generally, no, they won't. The city's just going to enjoy and then pee it down a rat hole probably, or find some pet projects to build with that money. And then the taxpayers will have to fund the upkeep of whatever silly thing they build. But I don't know. I'm just getting a little tired of it. I'm getting tired of governments, no matter what size, acting like a for-profit organization. They are not supposed to be that way. It is not the way it's supposed to be. And we need to stop pretending like that's what they are. That's just my opinion. I might be wrong, but that's my opinion on that.
Well, they're getting their lead from the federal government, who's buying up stock in Intel and all these other different, subsidies and things that they give out. But no, I have a hard time, like you were kind of hinting at there. So the data centers aren't selling anything out of the data center. It's all ran by Google, who's not incorporated in Missouri. And so where does the tax revenue coming from? Property taxes? Like, I'm serious. Like, there's no income to be made there. There's no sales to be made there. And so what are they, like, where is this tax revenue coming from that these data centers are putting in, unless you're going to tax data centers, unless there's a specific like tax for the data center. But like we were talking about, more often than not, they're tax abated. They're tax like they're giving tax breaks, tax incentives to build there. And so it's got to be like a politician pocket lining thing. It has to be, because there is no actual financial incentive for a city. Like you said, out of town workers come in. So, okay, some restaurants and some hotels, maybe some apartment complexes, get some renters for a little while. Then, or the people building the data center, they'll just bring in a bunch of trailers and people live on site. And so you won't even have workers that are like that are spending money in the town. And then once it's built, those people move out, some new people move in, those people make some money, 20 or 30 people in a town. But then the data center itself is not generating revenue, at least not any revenue that is going to the state of Missouri. So like you said, where's the benefit for the city at all? Like it doesn't seem like there is one. If anything, like we've talked about before, you're putting the risk on the people, because let's say, okay, this data center is paying for its own electricity, but the electric company has to build a new generator, build new systems to double its power. And so then that tax gets passed on to everyone, which includes the citizens. And so, yeah, there's a lot of risk for people living in these cities. There's not a lot of taxation benefit upsides, and there's not a lot of jobs upsides. And so the people selling it as that are just they're lying.
Yeah, and one other thing it sprang to mind a while back. My daughter sent me a video. Is right outside of Herman, some huge piece of equipment was being hauled down the highway at a tremendously slow rate of speed with a line of traffic behind them. Those people had to be incensed, but it was going to a data center, and I'm like, yeah, all this super heavy stuff going up and down these roads that could potentially tear up the highways. Is the data center going to pay for all the damage to the roads from hauling all that extra heavy stuff in and day out? No, probably not. People will probably get hit with that or whatever to repair stretches of highways or roads or whatever. So that probably won't come out of a data center project to cover any type of damages. The people will just be held accountable for all this. And generally, it's not a popular thing in towns across America to have a data center built, in their town or right on the edge of town. They're not a fan. The city governments are saying, well, boo-hoo to you, because they're going to build us a firehouse or something like that. Yeah, but they'll build the firehouse, but who's going to have to pay for the upkeep of said firehouse? Sure, the data center will build you the firehouse. You think they're going to maintain it if stuff breaks? No, they won't. The city will have to cover that. It might be in the form of more taxes because now you've got more equipment, more buildings to upkeep. It's hard to say, but these little promises, keep making them, but the financial impact is yet to be seen. And I think by the time we really get a peek at what the financial impact of this is on the citizens, it's just going to be like a lot of other government-led initiatives or things that locality thinks is going to be so good for them. It's going to be too late by the time you find out the numbers. And the data center is already there in operation. They're not going to shut it down. They're not going to come in and tear it all apart and haul it out to somewhere else. No, you're stuck with it now. Again, it's all reactive and not proactive with these people. Again, just the same as with a bad law. They're looking at intent and not outcome. Everything is reactive. It's not proactive. They're not proactive in searching out what really is going to be the impact of these things. They see dollar signs, they get promises, and they react because it's like they're seeing more revenue. And it's more money they can pee down a rat hole and do stupid things with that at the end of the day doesn't really promote the financial or well-being of people or institute a policy of protecting their rights. Brandon, well, actually, we're down at the end of the show because we're almost at an hour and a half.
Really quick, I remembered that Ryan Long joke. He was like, I knew a person who transitioned from woman to man, and she said she finally felt in the right body And she said when she was a woman, she just cried for every morning for 3 hours about being in a woman's body. And he goes, well, I'm starting to wonder if maybe God got that one right, if you felt the need to cry for 3 hours every morning.
All right, folks. Well, that's going to do it for this editions. At least I made it through the whole show without generally falling apart. This edition of the Missouri Liberty Report. Don't forget, next week we'll be joined by Mike Termott to talk about a new plan that he has. He'll hash that out for us. We can discuss it, and we'll see you right back here next Tuesday evening at 6:30 p.m. Central for another edition of the Missouri Liberty Report.